The Detroit Lions have gotten off to a fast and hot start for 2023, but yesterday they got even more news that's going to make people extremely ecstatic for what the Lions could do going into the rest of the season. J-Mo is back. We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned. It started with an owner who had a last name fans despised, hiring a coach that the experts thought was crazy.
But I got a plan, I swear to you.
Who traded for a QB that was said to be washed up. They said the Detroit Lions would never amount to anything, that it would always be the same old Lions. But this team, our team, has a new identity, defined and expressed by the crazy head coach.
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes, I will beat your ass.
Led by the QB that nobody thought was good. Motor City Mania is in full swing and ready to start. So join the show and be prepared for kneecap biting, because Motor City Mania starts right now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and we are diving in right now. So as always, I just want to say thank you all for coming back to the show. Thank you all for your view, your patronage, for your support. Just want to say God bless. Thank you for all that you do. And if you're new to the show, again, thank you for tuning in. And with that, let's dive into the content. So here's the thing, folks. This news came out yesterday. I could, in theory, have made this episode yesterday, but I wanted to wait a little bit because I wanted to try and get a little bit more of an understanding of the situation. I wanted to make sure I had my facts in a row, and I also thought, okay, we need to kind of back this ship up just a little bit here and try and figure out how exactly does this help the Lions, because it's like, okay, great. We got this player back. He's an explosive player. He's a big-time player for this Lions franchise in terms of the fact of what he can do. Have we seen it on the field yet? No, not really. But the potential is definitely there. The question is okay, what can this player do? What can J-Mo do for us when we actually get him back on the field? So that's kind of what this whole episode is going to center around on here. So, as always, let's kind of get into the nuts and bolts here and kind of explain everything, try and get everyone up to speed. Obviously, everyone should know what's going on by now, but let's understand something. Yesterday, the NFL kind of announced out of nowhere that they were reinstating Jameson Williams and another player for the Tennessee Titans. I can't remember what his name is, but one player for the Titans and Jameson Williams were being reinstated from their suspensions, with J-Mo being reinstated 2 weeks early from his 6-game suspension for breaking rules on the gambling policy, of which he broke the rule by gambling on a college game in a team facility. Now, granted, I'm not getting back into all that nonsense. I did plenty of times on my old channel. All I'm going to simply say is this. Regardless, right, wrong, or indifferent, the point of the matter is it was the rule. It was broken. I'm not trying to say he was right or wrong. I think the rule was not properly explained, but that's then, this is now. But that was what happened. J-Mo got suspended for 6 games because he gambled on a college game in a team facility. The team facility obviously being a hotel room, which again, very vague, very ticky-tacky rule. Didn't agree with it, but it is what it was. So, now we know that J-Mo has been reinstated 2 weeks early from his supposed initial suspension. Now, why was that the case? Well, this is part of the reason why I wanted to wait a little bit. The reason why is because not only the NFL didn't just decide to do this on a whim. The reason why is because the NFL and the NFL Players Association, also known as NFLPA, they agreed to a reworking of the framework of the kind of gambling rule that was in place. And because they agreed to rework the rule, what in essence it did is it pretty much allowed the players that had only been suspended for 6 games, at least from what I understand, from what I've read. I'm not saying I understand 100%, but from what I've read so far, those players that were gambled for that got busted for the 6-week suspension were allowed to come back. Now, the new rule pretty much follows the same thing, but the punishments are a little bit more severe. And this is what I mean. The NFL is now stating that if you gamble on NFL games, you are suspended for 1 year. If you're caught gambling on your own team, that is a 2-year suspension. And obviously, if you do anything to impact the outcome of a game, like point shaving or anything of that nature, it is a permanent ban as always. But again, because of this reworking of the framework of the rule for the reworking of the entirety of the thing, it allowed J-Mo to come back. So, I'm definitely not going to look a gift horse in the mouth because this is definitely big news. Getting Jamo back is huge, especially when we consider what this means for the Lions and when this is happening for the Lions. So, as we already know, the Lions have already started through the first quarter of the year going 3-1. They just had a massive win against the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football, and now they also get the massive news of Jameson Williams is going to come back a week early, and he is going to be eligible to play Week 5 against the Carolina Panthers at home. So, as I'm trying to get across here, having Jamo back is nothing but good news for the Detroit Lions at this point. Because again, let's think about this. Yes, the Lions are 3-1. We are in a good spot as far as our record. We have the best record in the NFC North. We're one of the best teams in terms of overall record and in our ability to perform throughout the entirety of the NFL. But let's understand something here. The offense is not nearly as good, so to speak, as some people would like to think that it is. And I have been one of those people that have started to kind of realize this. Because here's the thing, folks. Has the Lions offense been able to score points? Yes, it has. But let's understand something here. While the offense has still been able to score points, it's been somewhat inconsistent drive to drive and sometimes quarter to quarter. There have been times where the Lions offense goes out and it gets hot. It gets real red hot and it looks like a hot knife through butter. We saw that through the first 2 quarters of the Packers game. But then, in the third quarter of the Packers game, the offense kind of disappeared. And we've seen that happen for the Lions offense throughout certain points in certain games. We saw it against the freaking Falcons game a little bit. We saw it against the Chiefs. Realistically, the only time that the offense has really looked all that good was the first half of the Packers game, and then realistically through parts of the Seahawks game. So again, the inconsistency on the offense has been a little bit troubling. Now, to be fair, over the last 2 games, the defense has definitely picked up the slack. And I have made mention of it. I have lent my voice to it. But I'm not going to get into all that nonsense right now. My whole point is this. When you take a look at the Lions' offensive rankings and statistics for the first 4 games of the year, I'm going to put this out there right now. These numbers are going to look really good. But most of these numbers are soft because, well, the rest of the league hasn't played yet. They play tomorrow. So these numbers, while they're going to look really good, they are probably going to change in terms of rankings once we get to after Sunday and Monday night. But I'm just going to put it out here for, how should I say this? Kind of give you guys a guideline of where the Lions offense has been in terms of where it is right now. Because it's still a pretty damn good offense. But it's not as good as it could be. So let's take a look at what the Lions have done so far in offense. They've scored 106 points. That's second in the league. That's pretty good. Goes with what I'm saying about the Lions are still able to put up points. Total yards, 1,545, ranked second. That's definitely going to change. Yards are definitely not going to hold in the second spot for long. It's probably still going to be top 10, but not in the top 5. Yards average, 5.7, tied for 7th. First downs, 87. That's first in the league. That's not very much higher than the next one, so that's definitely going to change. Passing yards, 1 tick short of 1,000, 999, that ranks third. Passing average, 7.3, tied for second. Rushing yards, 546, that's ranked third. Rushing average, 4 pop, that's tied for 18th. Penalties, 26, tied for 29th. And scoring drive percentage is 37%, which is 13th. Now, like I just said, virtually all of those numbers look really, really good. And most of those numbers, like I said, are going to be soft. But the numbers that you really need to pay attention to here that are kind of an indicator of the fact that the Lions, while they've been able to score points, is good, the inconsistency is still a problem there. Number 1, we have 26 penalties on offense. That's near the bottom in terms of the NFL. That right there tells me that the Lions are not playing nearly as clean on offense as they should be. And then number 2, scoring drive percentage. While it is in the top half of the league at 37%, if we go back to last year, the Lions had a scoring drive percentage that was near top 5 in the league. So what I'm getting at here is this. While the Lions offense is still able to put up points, while they're still able to get a good decent amount of yardage, the inconsistency as far as scoring, as far as the efficiency, is not there. And you can see it in the penalties, you can see it in the scoring drive percentage. So what am I getting at here with putting those stats out? Well, let's understand something here. If we go back to last year, and we take a look at when Jamo was officially on the field with the Lions, I decided to start looking at some stuff here. if you take a look over the last 6 weeks that the Lions had with Jameson in the starting lineup, they had 6 games, 5 of which they won, 1 they lost. But that's not what I want to bring up as far as the main important part of this topic. I want to bring up Jared Goff here, because one thing everybody's going to know about me is this. I am a Goff fan, but let's also understand something about the Lions offense. The Lions offense is predicated on 2 main components working very well. 1, the offensive line, and 2, Jared Goff. And Jared Goff and the offensive line, they're like this. If the offensive line is playing very well, Jared Goff is going to be playing very well. And here's the thing. If we go back to last year at the very end, the Lions offensive line did relatively well in keeping Jared Goff clean and making sure Jared Goff wasn't getting a whole lot of pressure. If we take a look at the first 4 weeks of this year, that has not been the case anywhere at all. The Lions' offensive line has not done a very good job of keeping Jared Goff clean and off the ground. He's been getting pressured absolutely ridiculous. So what I decided to do is be like, okay here. We know what Jared Goff's numbers are so far. And to be fair, his numbers are still top 10. He still has really good numbers right now. But I wanted to take a look at something here. Let's go back to the last 6 weeks of the year when the offensive line was playing very well and we had our deep threats on the field, which was Jameson Williams and DJ Chark. You want to know how Jared Goff performed over the last 6 weeks of the year when we had all that working together? Here are the numbers. Jared Goff over the last 6 weeks of 2022 had 150 completions to 223 attempts, 67.2 completion percentage, 1,756 yards, 12 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, a 108.9 passer rating with a 67.8 QBR rating. Now, that sounds really damn good. And to be fair, it is really damn good. Because I didn't decide to do this. I was like, okay, that's the last 6 games, right? That's the last 6 weeks that the Lions played in 2022. I was like, I wonder how Jared Goff performed in the first 12 weeks in comparison. Here's where it gets really, really interesting. Let's take a look at how Jared Goff did in the first 12 weeks when DJ Chark wasn't a factor for most of those games. We didn't have Jameson Williams, and the offense for some of it was kind of sputtering, especially in those games against the Cowboys and the Patriots. Take a look at these stats now. Jared Goff had 232 completions to 364 attempts, 63.7 completion percentage, 2,682 yards, 17 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, a 93.5 passer rating with a 51.6 QBR rating. Now, I don't have to point this out very hard for you guys to figure this out, but the completion percentage dropped by 4% almost. The passer rating freaking dropped over 15 points. And the QBR dropped by freaking 16 points. That's a lot of difference between the first 12 weeks of the season when the offense was not nearly as consistent, we didn't have our deep threats, and there was some problems with the offensive line play. But then you go to the last 6 weeks of that season, offensive line play was playing pretty well. We had both JMO and DJ Chark on the field quite a bit. Our offense was getting healthy. And here's what I decided to do also. I decided to go even further with the comparative analysis. You take a look at those last 6 weeks, Jared Goff threw almost 40% of his yards in those 6 weeks alone, and over 40% of his touchdown passes in those last 6 weeks. Here's what I'm trying to get at here. When the offensive line is playing very well, and you have your deep threats on the field, it really helps out Jared Goff, and there is a reason for this. And here's what I'm trying to get at here. When I take a look at why the Lions were able to do so successful over the end of 2022, you could potentially think about it in one of 2 ways. Was it potentially because the Lions got better and kind of got into their groove towards the second half of the year and figured themselves out? That's definitely possible because, hey, we started 1-6, we finished 8-2, so that theory definitely holds some water. But I also, as I've been trying to kind of hint here, was it also because the offensive line and having JMO and DJ Chark on the field was also pretty important? I believe that's just as likely as important as well, because let's understand something here. The Lions' offense is an offense that predicates itself on running the ball first and setting up play action. Well, here's the thing. We also know that Ben Johnson likes to set up scripted deep shot plays. We've heard Ben Johnson say this before. Well, here's the thing. Last year, the Lions had 2 deep viable threats in both Jameson Williams and DJ Chark, albeit when he was healthy. But here's my whole point. when you have two deep threats like Chark and Jameson on the field, or one of them on the field at any given time, the defense has to respect that. They can't just let those guys roam all over the field willy-nilly. Because if they do, one thing we've already seen from Goff last year and so far this year, even despite the offensive line problems, is that Jared Goff is able to dice up defenses deep, short, and intermediate. But here's the thing. We don't have a true viable number one deep threat on this offense right now. And I'm going to point it out here. Because let's think about this. Who are our wide receivers? Amon-Ra St. Brown. Great slot option, great short to intermediate option. Not really a deep threat. Then you take a look at Josh Reynolds. Again, a really good short to intermediate guy, but not a deep threat. Then you take a look at Khalif Raymond. This is a guy that's 5'9", 5'10". He has the speed of a burner, but he simply doesn't have the height. So again, not really a deep threat. And then finally, you have Marvin Jones, who Marvin Jones hasn't really done much of anything since he came back to Detroit, so I'm not even going to really include him in that department. And then you have this guy named Antoine Green. And Green, here's the problem with Green. We don't really know what we have in him because he's, as his last name would imply, he's really green. He's inexperienced. So again, not a deep threat option either that you could really rely on. So what's been missing from the Lions? Well, like I just said, the offensive line has not really been performing up to snuff from what it was at the last 6 weeks of last year, and we don't have a viable deep threat. And here's the thing about having that deep threat. It helps in everything. Here's why. One, if you have a deep threat, it's going to open up the short to intermediate route packages, not including play action. Because again, if you send a guy deep, that means that the safeties in the corner have to respect that deep player, and it's going to free up and make the coverage underneath much softer. But then if you add play action on top of that, now you're putting a whole nother little thing on top of it. Okay, the linebackers, the edge rushers, they're going to bite up on the run. The safeties are going to do the exact same thing. If those safeties bite up and then that guy that's the speed demon, a.k.a. Jamo, gets behind him, as we saw in the Vikings game last year, all of a sudden, he's wide open. There's nobody covering him because they've bit on the run. So having that speed demon, having that true number one deep threat opens up a whole slew of options on offense. It opens up the offense immensely because now the defense realizes, okay, we can't just play everything short to intermediate level. We have to respect everything. And again, this was a question that reporters asked Ben Johnson at the beginning of the year. They're like, hey, without Jamo in the lineup, are you going to still be able to do your deep game? And to Ben Johnson's credit, he said that they would. But let's be fair here. Has it been nearly as explosive as what we had when Jamo was in the lineup or when we had Chark when he was healthy? No. So what I'm trying to get at here is this. Having Jamo in the lineup at the very, very least is having a respectable threat going deep that defenses have to honor. They can't just let guys just run back there all willy-nilly. They have to keep track of Jamo because if they don't, Goff will find him and they will at least get some of those plays converted. But what happens is, if nothing else, is that Jamo also acts as a decoy, opening up other options underneath. More options for Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, Sam Laporta, and Khalif Raymond. All of those guys get more options underneath, which is where the Lions like to do a lot of damage, is in that short to intermediate route package. But having that deep threat in Jamo is going to really further open up this offense, which I think is one of the main important ingredients that is missing to get this Lions offense to go back to where it was in 2022. Whether or not I'm right, we're definitely going to find out much sooner than what we thought. But I have a funny suspicion here with this. Okay, you have Taylor Decker back. That was a guy that we were missing the last 2 weeks. That definitely had an impact. We were missing David Montgomery last week. That definitely had an impact. And this is another reason why I'm trying to say getting Jamo back when we do right now is important. We just had a Thursday night game against the Packers. What's going on? Oh, that's right. We have a mini bye week because we have 10 days until we prepare for the Panthers. Now, granted, Jamo doesn't come in until Monday next week, but having freaking Taylor Decker get more healthy, have David Montgomery get more healthy, get Kirby Joseph back, get all those guys back that we're missing on both offense and defense, and getting Jamo back all in the same week, that is pretty damn important right there. And what I'm telling you right now is this. When you have all that coming together, it feels like, for once, the stars are kind of aligning and everything's kind of falling in the Lions' favor. Whether or not that winds up happening, I don't know. But again, What I'm trying to get at here with JMO is this. When you have all this coming together and the Lions just need one more component to really open up this offense, I think getting JMO back is going to open the offense wide open. But we'll see what happens. Having presented the evidence here, I just want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to do one of these three things or all three of them. Hell, that'd be even better. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you like what you saw, but you just forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and now you had a chance to do so, or just forgot as well, make sure you hit that bell notification icon that's at the bottom of the page, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Again, I also want to encourage y'all, please share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Let's keep getting the subscriber count up. Let's keep rebuilding this channel for where it used to be. So I encourage y'all, please share this content on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook. Let's keep the subscriber count going up. And with that being said, folks, this is MCM signing off for now. And I just want to again say thank you all for your view, thank you all for your patience, thank you all for your support, thank you all for everything that you do. And with that having been said, I'm signing off for now. And until the next time we meet, I'll see y'all in the next episode.